Hey there, my name is Misha, and I'm excited to share the first episode of the Tokyo Mindfulness podcast. The goal of this podcast is to empower English speakers in Japan with practical mental health advice and mindfulness practices to live a more balanced life. So, today's first guest is Rob Nugen, who is a connection coach for men. And Rob is a friend of mine who I've known for a few years. We've been in some of the same circles, and he also runs a men's group, a men's peer counseling group, as well as different workshops and retreats around Tokyo. What's most interesting about Rob that I noticed was he is barefoot. He has been barefoot in Japan for 14 years and has been walking around barefoot for over 20 years around the world. And so he has a very interesting story. And in this conversation, we'll talk a little bit about what got him to go barefoot, and then also move into talking more about emotions, talking more about some of the challenges men have in Japan, and also some guided practices that you can actually do while listening to our conversation. So I hope that you enjoy our talk, and let's get right into it. Hey, Rob, welcome to the
Hey,
show.
Misha. Thank you.
I am so excited to be talking to you today. This is the first conversation that I'm having for the Tokyo
Nice.
Mindfulness podcast.
Nice.
And you are the first person I thought to reach out to.
Oh,
So,
thank you, brother. It's
yeah.
it's funny. I just posted on Facebook that I'm feeling waku waku doki doki about it. So I'm really excited as well. So thank you for reaching out to me to have a
Yeah,
conversation.
absolutely. So we connected a while back, and we've run into each other at different events, and
Hmm.
also um, been at some of the same types of events
Yes.
around meditation and philosophy and kind of connection as well in Tokyo. And what really struck me about our first interaction was that you were barefoot.
Yeah.
And we're living in Tokyo, a city of millions of people, and
Mm-hmm.
of course there's the cultural side of being barefoot. uh, and I was just really surprised and really curious to hear the story of you being barefoot, because you've been barefoot in Tokyo for, my understanding is 20 something years.
Uh, the story has grown. I've been barefoot in the world for 24 years.
Okay.
In Tokyo, it's been 14 years since 2010. And this is 2024 as we're recording this. But I've been in Tokyo for 21 years now. So the numbers get confusing. But my first 7 years here, I wore shoes thinking I have to fit in and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a while, like looking around Tokyo, you can wear a weird clown cowboy hat and no one will even notice. No one says anything. And I'm like, well, I can take off my shoes. If that guy can wear a Spider-Man costume and walk around and no one even notices him, I can take off my
Yeah.
shoes. So that's how I realized it was okay in Tokyo to do that.
So why do
For
this? Why go
joy,
barefoot?
joy. I'm so much happier being barefoot.
Mm-hmm.
It it got to a point, like I had been barefoot for 10 years in the US, and that started in my university days. We had lots of grass on the campus, University of Houston, and I was known as the barefoot frisbee guy. And that just no one really knew me necessarily, but I was recognized. When I got to Tokyo, like I said, I put on shoes for a while, and when I would get home at after work or whatever, take off my shoes. This is how I characterize it. My feet would be like, okay, thank you. Okay, hang on, And I was like, why am I doing this to my feet? They're obviously very unhappy to be cooped up in shoes all day. And I know the joy of being barefoot, and no one cares about me in Tokyo. So fuck it, I'll just take off my shoes again. And I was scared at first. I thought I'd be pulled over by the train station guys or the cops or whoever. But basically, it's been fine. It's actually been
Wow.
easier in the U.S. Sorry, easier in Japan than in the U.S. because there's no laws that say you can't come into the restaurant without shoes or the convenience store without shoes.
Hmm.
So it's like
That's
awesome.
fascinating because
Yeah.
there is no law, which I didn't I had no idea until you just told me. But there's of course a kind of social etiquette and kind of
Mm,
rules around
yes.
going inside, taking your shoes off, but
Yes.
you're of course not wearing shoes in the first place.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
do you just wipe your feet? Like what do you do?
Well, it depends on the location. It Most restaurants are not clean. Let me just tell you that right now.
Hmm.
Um, but if it's a place that's actually clean inside, then if I haven't prepared for it and brought something, I'll bring a rag and wipe my feet,
Hmm.
jokingly like, oh, the doggy has arrived at the house. You need to wipe the little feet here. And but if I haven't, I'll be like, hey, sorry, I'm barefoot. Can I get a rag or something? But in most cases, the to be honest, the restaurants they're not clean on the floor.
Yeah,
Izakayas as well, especially. There's like grease everywhere. I can feel it,
true.
and it's spooky and weird. But I'm thinking, man, if my feet can't handle a little bit of dirt, just let me die right now.
Hmm.
I don't need to be on the planet if I can't handle a little bacteria or what have you. So yeah,
So have you ever been stopped by anyone or even the police or just
yeah,
strangers who were asking if everything's all right?
yes,
Could you talk to me
yes,
about some
yes, yeah.
something that happened like that?
Um, I have been stopped by the police a couple of times. Mostly it's in like kind of rich areas like Azabu Juban or even in Roppongi late at night. Sometimes they walk in there, and it's just kind of this same old process each time. Is like, can we see, who are you, what are you doing, let me, and I would pull out my identification card, and can we search your bag, and I have to really breathe. Okay, yes, go ahead, if you feel you must search my bag. Sometimes I ask them why, like, oh, you might have something dangerous. I'm like, dude, I'm a barefoot hippie. I don't have anything dangerous. Why are you even thinking about? But it's odd, people. Sorry, the police are trying to keep things safe, and they see something that may not be safe. All right, fair enough.
Hmm.
But it's been very rare that that's happened, like 3 or 4 times in 14 years.
Wow.
So exceedingly rare. Sometimes people, this like other passengers in the train station, usually they're like one third, one third, one third, like, oh, that's cool, or daijobu, or let me get you some slippers or something, kind of
Right.
thing. That's
Yeah. I
you know,
imagine they'd want to help out
yeah, yeah,
like a gaijin in need, like he
right.
forgot his
I guess that
shoes.
last one is actually less than a third, but mostly it's like, are you okay, kind of
Yeah.
thing. It does happen, and I'm always grateful, and I try to be gracious and say, oh yeah, no, no, I'm fine, and even have a conversation if they're willing and curious.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because you were talking about the reason that this started was because you realized that your feet were a lot happier when you
yeah,
just took your shoes off, and
yeah,
of course, I imagine your feet are also getting stronger as you
yeah.
do
Oh,
this
for
over the
sure.
years. Uh, Walking on grass barefoot is one thing, but walking on cement and asphalt and being in a city, it seems like it could be really unpleasant.
Yeah, I get your point there. There have been times that I've like, this is my big toe. I've stubbed my toe into a curb or something, and just like lay open the front of my toe, just like blood and the whole thing. That has happened, and that's probably the most common injury I've had, is if I'm not paying attention. But as far as glass or cuts, uh, incredibly rare that those injuries have happened.
Yeah. You
But
probably wouldn't
yeah,
do this in New York City.
well, I did in New
You
York
did.
City when, yeah, I got to go there for a few days while sailing on a peace boat voyage. But I don't know New York well. We were in the port area, and I went to a famous bakery. I forget what, Magnolia Bakery,
Yeah,
maybe.
that sounds familiar.
Yeah, big muffins with a giant load of icing on top, and 18 miles of books. We went to that bookstore. So I went to a few places, but and it was all fine. Oh, and the world, not the World Trade Center, the United Nations building. I was
Hmm.
there, and the big park, Central Park. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Well, I imagine a lot of people are probably not going to decide
Oh, I know.
to go barefoot, but
No, no, no.
there's also this really kind of interesting experiment that one could do is to go barefoot for some time, even
Yes,
just in the park. And
yes.
like, what would you recommend to people just to give this a try to reconnect, perhaps?
The recommendation I always say, because I do run some barefoot walking or barefoot grounding events, and for newcomers, I invite them, just use your eyes and trust your feet. And so if you feel something ouchy, step back, but go slow at first. Watch where you're walking, and like, it will feel weird. We have as many nerve endings on the bottom of our feet as on the palms of the hand. Hands are very sensitive and dexterous, and feet are designed to be sensitive and dexterous. They're part of how we know where we are in the world. And when the feet have been muted by shoes, this is my foot wearing a shoe. When they've been muted by shoes for so long, you can't feel the actual flavors of the ground, like the rocks, the sticks, the leaves, the
Mhm.
wet paint, the what. And so all of these are new sensations, and it's fascinating how much I can feel, and it could be a bit overwhelming at first. So I say, slow down, give yourself time, trust yourself, trust your feet, trust your eyes, and I would not trust a grassy park, because sometimes it's harder to see in the grass what might be lurking, whether it's like, I don't want to say, like poop or a stick or a wasp, or these
Poop or a
things
stick.
are easy
Yeah.
to see on the sidewalk, even though the sidewalk is rougher in general. But
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, it's ostensibly safer to walk in the city where I can see what's coming up, but the grass can hide a lot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. To me, it really feels like a a type of skinny dipping, except
not as
not as
skinny,
naked, not as skinny.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Because it's like you don't most people don't go barefoot or take their shoes off anywhere as adults. It's something you do as a kid. It's something
Yeah,
you remember doing as a kid,
yeah,
and just doing that alone, just taking your shoes off in a place where maybe you normally wouldn't, can actually be really freeing. Is my
yes.
sense.
One of the attendees, well, so I should say two, a fufu, a married couple in their 70, mid 70s, I'll just say. Um, said they hadn't gone barefoot since they were kids. And when the husband was walking barefoot in the grass, he looked like a happy toddler to me. He was just like just it was an amazing scene to see him so gloriously, joy, like in a moment of joy there. Like I'm losing my words. I was just like, wow, fascinated. And he attended for about a year, and now he's gotten busy with whatever, but his wife still comes every month.
Wow.
She's there. And
Hmm.
but yeah, it's 70 few years that she hadn't been barefoot. And on the first day, she's like, "Oh, what about bacteria?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, okay, I hear your concern." And then she was like, "All right, whatever." And now she's like, "Yeah," she's the first one out in the field.
Wow.
So it's amazing.
So I want to, in a minute, I want to shift gears, but I want to spend just a little more time on this.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm just thinking of how to phrase the question because what you're saying is it's really simple in a way. You just take your shoes off
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
you'll be happier. And this is what we used to do as kids. And like,
Mm-hmm.
why not do it now?
Mm-hmm.
Why not play?
Mm.
And I'm wondering how you can tie this to the just the idea of mental health in
Mm.
Japan.
Easily. Yeah. Well, not even specific to Japan.
Hmm.
Uh, the body lives in the present moment. The brain lives everywhere else, usually, worried about this or whatever. And so when I or one or someone takes off the shoes and just come into the physical experience of standing on the grass and
Hmm.
noticing it, the concerns just drop away
Hmm.
and can become really present and really focused on the here and now and the present moment. And that's like literally a huge key to mental health right there, is to be here now, stop
Hmm.
being lost in the negative thoughts.
Hmm. Yeah, what's coming to mind when you say that is this sort of disconnection that we have with the
Mm.
body,
Mm-hmm.
right? And being really caught up in anxiety and worry and regret.
Yeah.
But when you're just taking your shoes off and you're actually connecting with the earth, you're feeling more connected and you're
Mm-hmm.
literally feeling more grounded,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it seems so simple.
Yes. And just to like catch any naysayers, you don't have to take off the shoes to have those grounding moments, but
Yeah.
taking the shoes off kind of triggers it automatically. It's like, whoa, what's this? And the sensations immediately are grounded, and because it's so new. Um, but yeah, it's just one of many techniques that can help someone come to the present moment, which I think is a huge magic being for for health, mental health,
Hmm.
and joy in life.
Yeah. And importantly, it's accessible. It's accessible
Yeah.
to
Yep.
everyone who has feet,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm a big fan of this. I love what you're doing, and
Thank you.
it's a whole different level of courage to be doing this for so long. And I think just even if people can get a little bit of a taste of that, I think it could be really beneficial for,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, just for mental health and grounding.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I personally do this. I'll go to the park for just 10,
Yeah.
15
Good.
minutes, walk around. So it makes a really big difference. Just even a short. You don't need to do it for long, right?
Well, depends on what the desire is, but
Sure.
exactly, you don't need to do it for very long, because like a meditation for a minute is better than zero.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
absolutely.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, yeah, I think we could probably talk more about that, but let's shift gears and
Yeah.
kind of move a little bit more into some of the other work that you're doing. So you don't just go around barefoot,
Yeah.
walking walk around Tokyo barefoot all day. So I
Right.
think you're doing some other things. So
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about what kind of what projects you're working on now, and what's got you most interested and excited.
Gosh, there's so much. Um, I will go back, like starting with the connection to the ground is connection to the self. I'm
Mhm.
I'm doing connection coaching, which is a way to bring joy into your life by, refining all of the connections, optimizing the connections that we have, which is a connection to the self, connection with other people and relationships of all types. And I'm writing a book about it. I have a few books planned, but the first one is like a, just a quick beginner book about emotions, and encouraging people to begin the inner journey and begin that work of self-discovery. And it'll be basically, you know, just all science, nothing woo-woo, but there's so many benefits to helping helping people do that inner work, getting started on that. So,
Yeah. Well, let's talk more about that because I know
mm,
one of the big projects connected to this book and what you've been doing is around specifically around like men's circles and
yes,
helping men work through
yes,
emotions
yes, yes,
and feel their emotions and kind of release their emotions. So, like, tell me more about why that's important. What is it about kind of men
yeah,
and emotions?
yeah,
Stereotypically, of course, we might think
right.
that men don't really kind of care so much about emotions or are less attuned.
Mm-hmm.
But is that
Mm-hmm.
really true? And talk to me more about your interest in that and the situation.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. The In the U.S., I was in a men's group, Mankind Project, has several groups across all the states in the U.S. And I came to Japan, ain't nothing like that I could find, at least in English. And I started a I restarted a previously existing Mankind Project group here, but kind of opened it up to give men a space to be able to talk about real topics, like, you know getting divorced, or my kids hate me, or the work situation, or employees, whatever it may be, big projects that we have. That, getting back to your question, I think the problem is that I and men have been taught to get it done, handle it, you can do it. It's, on one level, it's empowering, but it's also debilitating, because I can't do it alone. I think very few people can, like, really shoulder all their projects without some support. But that support is never really suggested as a tool. It's like, well, yeah, you can do it. And it's like, okay, great. I don't always feel like I can do it, kind of thing. And I think just shoulder this burden of, like, okay, I can do it. Shit, now what? And so it's like having each person has different skill sets, and the having a space where we can share challenges, offer insights, and be present with one another. I think that's the biggest piece, is just to be holding space, holding space for the someone describing their challenge that they're facing. I believe slash I know he has all the resources and skills he needs to get out of the situation, but he might not see it because of all the pressure of like I got to handle this by myself kind of thing, and I got to do it. So that's a huge, lots of assumptions and broad strokes, but I
Mm,
think this idea that men need to do it alone, I think is the
mm,
biggest piece that I would
mm.
like to disencourage. Don't have to do it
Yeah,
alone.
yeah.
Support one another.
So it sounds like there's this cultural, mostly cultural emphasis on self
Mm-hmm.
reliance, and
Mm-hmm.
of course it also depends on how you're raised and so many
Right.
factors.
Right.
And I'm curious. I'm curious to bring this back to Japan, and of course, uh, English speakers in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, maybe we could focus on what challenges what challenges men might have
Mm-hmm.
in Japan through your work that you've seen,
Mm-hmm.
people that you've coached and spoken to, and friends or whoever. Um, like
Yeah.
what kind of challenges are men facing in Japan who are foreign to Japan?
Yeah. One of the biggest, most consistent stories that I'll say for fathers in Japan. In a lot of cases, the men who I work with are married to a Japanese woman. And if there are kids involved, and if there are problems in the relationship, as will happen, the the law is apparently changing, but the threat that the man is going to lose access to his kids is a very real, very huge challenge for a lot of the men who I've worked with, because there's no dual custody in Japan, except apparently it's changing. But for many years, if a divorce happened, the wife would get the kids, and the
Mm.
man would lose access to his children until they grow up, kind of thing. So that's one very consistent um, challenge that I've seen men face here in Japan.
So how does that play out exactly? It's that they feel stuck perhaps in the relationship, knowing that if they were to divorce, then they would also lose their kid. Is that the sort of the bind that they find themselves in?
Yeah, that's one way it can play out. The like I like I'm hearing some of the lines I've heard, like I just want to do whatever it takes to keep my kids. And so again, it's like, all right, I'm gonna like do whatever it takes to keep the kids. I'll pay the money, or like whatever kind of situation he's facing. It's like having that um, burden is, I lost track of my brain here, but having that burden just like so important that he wants to
Mm.
keep connection with his kids.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's really sad to hear,
Yeah.
but also hopeful that the laws are changing.
Yes.
So I guess for someone, let's say a man who's listening in, maybe they're married or they have a partner, and they find themselves in the situation where they're unhappy,
Hmm.
and they have kids, let's say. How would you start a conversation with them? Like what kind of exploration, or even inquiry? I think we were talking before about
Hmm.
kind of a
Hmm.
guided inquiry.
Yeah.
uh, what might you offer to them, um, either as an idea or an actual
Hmm.
practice that we could even do
Yeah.
in our conversation right now?
There, it would depend on the man's situation, and I would always ask what he wants in the big picture, what he wants to have happen in the bigger picture. But
Hmm.
the it's always creating a space where he can feel heard. And as I'm suddenly switching into coaching mode, so that I'm going to try to stay in podcast mode. I can do a piece that doesn't require actual answers from you or people who may be listening, if that would be
Sure.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just to get
yeah,
a taste of,
yeah.
um, just to get a
Okay,
taste of that. Sure.
okay. So let me invite you to get yourself grounded, and just if you're driving, just listen gently and don't do this, but stay safe. And I want you to think about a secret that you have been holding for a long time. Let me know when you've got it. And I want you to feel how much energy has been required for you to hold this secret. And I want you to think about the relief you can feel if you can release this secret so it's no longer a burden for you. And imagine how your life can change if you're able to live freely and be free of this burden.
Mm.
Yeah. Holding space for yourself. Just imagine how that can be. And what's one step you can take toward releasing yourself from this burden? And for this space, I'll say you can answer if you want to, or just recognize for yourself. But that's a type of thing that I might start a conversation, and it keeps the person, the could be man or woman, but it keeps them empowered. It helps him imagine a more positive future and begin a process, begin the journey of getting toward that future and heading that direction.
Yeah. That was beautiful. Thank you
Yeah,
for guiding us through that.
yeah. Thank
I
you.
think one thing that came up for me, if I can share
Yeah,
briefly, so it's something that's been ongoing, and I think in a much better place today. Uh, but is this they kind of invited us to look at The Secret, and for
Mm-hmm.
me, it's been recurring this image, kind of creating this image that I know what I'm doing, that
Mm.
I'm that I'm competent and that I know what I'm doing, which is very much a facade because I usually don't know what I'm doing.
Mm.
uh, and so,
Me
right,
too. I'm raising my
yeah,
hand
yeah.
to
Who
that one.
else? Who else here,
Yeah.
right? And so uh, there's energy that it takes to hold that and
Mm-hmm.
to have some pretend or to wear some mask,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so to be able to admit, even just in this conversation, it's like, yeah, like I don't actually know what I'm doing a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
time in terms of is this really the best way to do it? Is this really the best strategy? Um, all these different kind of questions that one might
Mm.
have of
Yeah.
uncertainty. And so, what I want to ask you, just on this practice that we did, is you kind of invited this self reflection and sitting with yourself and grounding,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's also a conversation piece where you can talk to a friend and you can say, hey, like I'm having a hard time in my relationship or whatever it might be. But then there's this other approach of actually just sitting with yourself and kind of basically feeling your body, which
Mm-hmm.
might be a new concept for some people listening. But can you speak a little bit to the difference here between conversation versus kind of inner focus
Mm-hmm.
on body and emotions?
Mm. Yeah. I think both are important. Um, the conversation side can be done in ways that are, I'll just say, safe, and it could be done in ways that are unsafe. And that can go for the listener or the speaker as well, either one. What was the question? This the differences between speaking with someone versus inner
Yeah,
contemplation?
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
okay. Uh, the inner the inner journey is important just to get a sense of what's happening below the head, so to speak, and to practice being with the energies and the emotions that arise. That literally can't be done kind of, well, it can, but like doesn't require another person. And if I'm in a deep conversation, and largely ignore the body, so there's a balance between being aware of the emotions and talking about them, but the feeling piece is of vital importance because the emotions are, I'll say, the emotions are patient, and whatever it was that brought them up is kind of unrelated. The emotion itself needs to be acknowledged. And my theory is that somehow emotions don't exist within time the way the physical body does. And that's going to be in my first book. Um, and so the process of witnessing the emotions allows that energy to be transmuted or transformed or changed in some way, and thereby less of a burden on the physical body and in the mindset by acknowledging the emotions. So that's like the inner piece, an overview of that. Then the other piece of actually speaking with a trusted confidant, could be a friend or partner or coach or counselor. I think the magic there is that there is a duality, an apparent duality, that this is a person and this is a person. And this would go into woo woo pretty quick, but I think each person is a kind of a manifestation of something greater, a higher power, God, or what have you. And when one person can listen without judgment to my fears or my guilt or my shame, I feel the grace of higher power blessing me when it's when I'm able to share and not be judged for it.
Hmm.
And I think that requires either an incredible amount of meditation to do it all internally, or a trusted external party to do that.
Yeah,
So
that's
those are
clear.
the kind
Yeah,
of big differences I see.
absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense. And whether or not you connect it to divinity or anything like that, it's not the point. It's
Mm-hmm.
more that you're in the presence of someone non-judgmental.
Yes. Yeah.
And when you were saying that, I was thinking like, wow, that's so rare, right? So if you're saying like, hey, like one of the important points to release your emotions and find some peace is to be in the presence and the witness of someone non-judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even when you're talking to a friend, oftentimes a friend will try and give you advice, right?
Right.
And oftentimes our expressions to our friends and family are complaints in some form. And
Mm-hmm.
so that might release some steam, but it doesn't necessarily, it might actually even make things worse because you're
Yeah. I'm just thinking
right.
that it might make things
It
worse.
actually might make things worse because you're getting all sorts of different messages. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so my point, I guess, is just that it's rare to have that,
Mm.
right?
I want it. Yes, I agree. I want it to be less rare, and that's why it's one of the like services I offer, but not described as such. And just to make it easier, like I'll help you feel better, and but the secret sauce behind the scenes, listening without judgment. For the grace of God, there. What's the line like? Except for the grace of God, there go I. I can easily see how that could be me each time I'm listening to someone. And through the years of practice, I have my like developed, like I can hear something, hear it, and then just let it be grounded, drop it, and let that energy be transmuted by earth or whatever, and just hold space for that person to be able to get stuff out of their system.
Hmm.
And I think I don't think, I have heard many, many, many times how helpful it is just to talk, just to be able to say it and not be judged.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's
that's,
very powerful. Just
yeah.
to to have a compassionate, non-judgmental
Mm-hmm.
witness, right?
Yeah.
And and so I guess we're talking about people in general, but we were talking about men.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about men in Japan, and specifically how you've encountered a lot of men in relationships with kids. They seem to struggle a
Mm-hmm.
lot. Um, is there anything else you want to say around that? Around perhaps some of the challenges men have in Japan, and just calling them into this conversation?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's something like you have options. The beliefs that I'm stuck creates the situation of being stuck. And this doesn't go into the Japan topic, but you asked about Japan specifically. There are a lot of resources available. There is a large enough community of people from your country also available in Japan, or with the same culture, same background. There is support available, and you don't have to do it alone. And that's still not Japan specific, but it is expat specific in whatever country people might be in. Allow yourself to imagine that there is support available, someone who has had an experience like yours and can be present, and whether it's a mutual supporting each other or not doesn't really matter, but it is available.
Yeah, I think that's a really important message.
Mm,
Thanks for sharing that.
my pleasure.
So, are there any other tools that you recommend here? I know you just said
Yeah.
there's a lot of resources out there,
Yes.
and people can go find those, and there's of course, Tell Japan
Yeah.
has a
Tell Lifeline.
lifeline.
There's Mankind Project Japan. Full disclosure, that's the group that I founded. I'm not really the leader at this point, but it's still
Yeah.
growing. I'm still attending. Uh, there are other resources, um, lots of
So
counselors and such.
yeah, the counselors, and just kind of going back to tools that one can use without necessarily reaching out to those people,
Mm,
just
yeah.
something that you have now. So you mentioned talking to a friend, something you might have
Mm-hmm.
access to, um, doing this sort of self inquiry,
Mm-hmm.
and the idea of sitting with your emotions
Yes.
a little bit. So do you want to talk more about that, or do you want to share any other tools that you might
Well,
have in your toolkit?
yeah. When you say tool, the first one that comes to my mind is the breath,
Okay.
which is the classic go-to thing for meditation, and it's a great tool in terms of allowing the emotions to have time to process themselves within the body. I use breath if I feel angry. I'll breathe. And from one of my coaches, I got to count 5 breaths, and uh, it now takes far fewer than 5 for me now, but at that time, and just that was 1 breath, and just notice what's happening inside while the desire to act is like, oh my God, that person, blah, blah. Okay, something happened, and then something happened inside the body. Oh, interesting. Just breathe while that energy is flowing, and allow it time to be parsed or I don't have a verb here that's exactly the perfect one, but like transmuted or changed or float away. But the breath is an incredible tool that I have used and have recommended to good results, and can definitely say that's one tool in my toolbox.
Yeah, very simple,
Be
simple and
aware of the
accessible.
breath. Yeah.
And one question that came to mind as you were saying
Mm.
that, which I didn't ask, and
Mm.
just getting maybe we can cover this a little bit, but just the idea of experiencing your emotions and
Mm.
turning towards your emotions, which is what
Mm-hmm.
we're doing here. Actually, might have been good to start with this, but that's okay. We can talk about it now. Uh, I think it's kind of maybe a foreign idea, especially to men, but I think it could also be seen as weak in some way.
Ah. Uh-huh.
In that, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'm afraid, or I have this guilt,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, and it's like, well, that's fine, but like, just I got to move on. I have to take action.
Mm.
I have to do something.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be sitting around, feeling my guilt all day, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so there's a sort of sense that this sort of question, like, why is this even a thing? Why is this useful? Why can't I just kind of take action and um, just focus on courage and action rather than kind of getting in touch with emotions, which doesn't doesn't always seem like the most
Mm-hmm.
productive thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Right. What what seems to happen if I or someone just focus on action, ignore all those emotions and just charge forward, is some type of disruption where you can characterize it in many different ways, but the emotions will catch up, kind of thing, or something is going to like trigger, and then like and then it just kind of explodes over uncontrollably. And that's how the distinction I would make between anger and then uncontrolled rage, just like and unfortunately it happens when people haven't processed the anger one bit at a time until it just comes overflowing like a volcano.
Hmm.
And the same thing maybe for fear. If it is just ignored all the time, we might never go down that scary trail that leads to all the riches, because it's like, they're just going to do this thing here. This is what I have to do. And the fear slash excitement is over here. Like, start a new podcast, or, write a book, or, do a thing that's exciting and scary. But if I'm not able to sit with the fear, I can't do that exciting thing. So it's two
Yeah,
top of mind examples.
yeah, it's a really good point, and it's subtle in a way because oftentimes people are encouraged to overcome their fears and to move past your fears. So okay, you want to write a book, oh, get past your fear of the what the blank page. But what you're actually saying is, in order to do that, you first need to sit with it and be with the fear before
Mm-hmm.
you can actually overcome it. And that's
Mm-hmm.
a subtle but extremely important first step.
Mm-hmm. What comes up for me as you say that, the your project might not be a book, even if people say, "Oh, you should write a book." Maybe that's not the thing, and maybe the fear is so far hidden because of the fear that we can't see it. And so the sitting with it allows those fears to allow the actual project to come up. And that might be a different way of saying what you just said, but that's what came up for me from what you were saying.
Yeah, I think it's at a different depth,
Yeah.
and it also seems like there's a lot of ways that people push this down, whether it's fear or something else, or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
a desire to they have their dream career or job or whatever they like to do, and instead they might spend time chasing something else, which might be seen as a stepping stone or not really what they want to do because
Right.
that the career that they really want is doesn't pay, or they don't know how they would do it, or they'd have to really change who they are in order
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
pursue that. And so I've personally found that a lot in career coaching. That does come up a lot in what do you really want to do?
Yes.
Why aren't you doing that?
Yeah. And what you just touched on is, who do you need to become in order to allow that thing to become part of your life. And so
Yeah,
it's an identity shift.
that's a whole nother podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, cool, man. Yeah, so much here to continue talking about, but I think we've already covered a lot. There's a lot to digest in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the topic of emotions. So, is there anything that you wanna share around what we've discussed that we didn't cover? Any other important salient points,
Mm-hmm.
um, or messages that you want to convey as we wrap up here in the next few
Yeah.
minutes?
I I definitely I'm gonna plug my book for two reasons. One is so I write it and finish it. It is not done yet, and I do feel fear about will it ever be done, et cetera, et cetera. But I want some social media pressure to say, hey, how's that book coming? Like, oh, hey, it's coming. But the other piece is the story that informed the title of the book, and maybe we can get I'll send you the cover.
Mm-hmm.
But the title of the book is I'm Fine. And it has a guy like just clenched fist and like leave me alone kind of energy saying he's fine, and he's not fine. That story came, that quote came from my grandfather after his wife died. My mom and her sister said, Daddy, are you okay? How are you feeling? I'm just damn fine. And that was the end of the conversation. I was in high school, or no, even earlier than high school, and I knew he wasn't fine. I didn't know what to do. And now I know what to do, just to hold space and say, yeah, and just be present. And my want is for these skills to be more available so people know how to support one another and know how to be supported and to be encouraged to be supported, and that it's okay, and it's basically necessary to get this kind of support because you can't do it alone. I know I'm using a you statement. I certainly can't do it alone, and I've seen very few people who can. So
Yeah, that's a beautiful message, and
yeah.
I love that title of the book as well. I'm fine. It just
Mm-hmm.
it really
Yeah.
reminds me of myself, and I think many other people can
Mm,
probably relate to that.
right.
Uh, so I think uncovering the truth there and being honest is such an
Yeah. Yeah.
important part of
It'll
that.
Yeah, my desire is that the person who reads it puts the book down feeling empowered and encouraged and believing in themselves. It's like, huh, okay, I can feel this way and be okay and keep moving forward and reach out for help. So that's my desire for the book, or for the readers of the book there. So
Awesome. Well, you have some pressure now to write it, so once it's ready, we'll link back to it in the show notes,
yes.
and
Publish
I
this in 2027, please. No.
hopefully sooner. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, man, I think that's a great place to wrap up. Is there anything else you want to share before we head off?
Nah, that's good for now. I'm glad there can be another podcast. I enjoyed speaking with you, and I appreciate the journey.
Yeah, man.
So thank you
I
very
yeah.
much.
Thank you so much for your time, Rob.
Absolutely. Thank
All
you,
right.
Misha.
All
Be
right. Take
well.
care. See ya.
Okay. Bye bye.
Alrighty. So I hope that you enjoyed that conversation with Rob and I. I will link back to his website and men's group, as well as upcoming book. So if you're interested in what he's doing, please connect with him. And if you resonated with some of what he was saying, then I really recommend you check out some of the workshops that he's doing, and kind of bring some of these practices in person, where it can be really powerful to connect with others who are really on this journey of not necessarily self improvement, but on this journey to discovering uh, their own truth and authenticity, and to perhaps releasing some some difficult emotions that have built up. So I wish you luck on your journey. And lastly, I will share a little bit about Tokyo Mindfulness. So for those who don't know, I have been running a community called the Tokyo Mindfulness Community for the last 3 years, and we host events, retreats, meditation sessions, mostly around mindfulness meditation, but also some different practices. So if you are interested to connect in person, to meet other people who are interested in the stuff and mental health, then please check out tokyomindfulness.com. And I hope to see you out at an event. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day, your week, and I will see you next time.